Welcome, Kim Searle, Emotional Mastery. It's been a while since I've done some interviews, and I am so sorry about that because I do find them absolutely fascinating. Today, I've got with me the wonderful and lovely Marie Behenna. We've known each other for a very long time. And Marie is co-director of Studio 41 Fitness Limited. She's also a director of Fitmama Studio Limited. And I didn't know this, and we'll need to talk about that, is author of the Fitmama method, which sounds incredible. So I'm really impressed with that. And she's just told me, awesome, that she's also, what was it you said? I'm saying this actually, all round, excellent, doula. And I will need to find out more about that. I know a bit, but maybe with our audience today, we'll find out more. Welcome, Marie. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. It's lovely to have you here. One of the reasons I set up these interviews was because I wanted to talk to people who were bringing more joy and happiness and light into people's lives. And you do that on two levels, don't you? Specifically fitness, but then with mums. So would you mind just telling us more about what you do? Because obviously they're just headers at the moment.
Well, so in general, my husband and I own a health and wellbeing centre where we teach unusual but functional fitness training methods and ketogenic nutrition methods. So everything we do is with both feet on the floor and swinging kettlebells and spinning Bulgarian bags around our heads, but using the body in its natural form of movement so that we avoid causing injuries and other mechanical problems that a traditional gym might cause. But we also train people barefoot, which is probably one of the things that we're more well known for. And the reason behind that is because when you train barefoot, the mechanics of the body operate much more efficiently, and you're less likely to cause yourself knee problems and hip problems from your trainers.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never realised that. I've often, as a child, I used to run barefoot everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean everywhere, up the concrete hills and across, grass and whatever. Lived pretty much the summer in barefoot. And nowadays, just rarely do it. And it's such a shame because it's a really good feeling. And I guess from a reflexology perspective, you're touching on more than just your feet, and you don't know that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you become so earthed and connected, to the ground. So it's such a fantastic form of living, really. I mean, I very rarely wear shoes, so unless I have to, unless it's an outfit, then that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
And so that's the main part of the business that I do with my husband. But then I also teach pregnant and postnatal women how to use their bodies and to get them ready for childbirth, but also to understand how their bodies work for childbirth. So many women will go into pregnancy and labour having absolutely no idea which muscles help to squeeze the babies out and how to activate them. And, so I lure them in with the cheesy exercise. And then once I've got them in my grip, I teach them all the stuff that they need to know. And that includes things like breathing techniques and birthing positions. And then once they've had their babies, I'm a little bit controversial in the sense that I will take women from as early as 2 weeks after they've had their baby to rehabilitate their core and pelvic floor.
Oh, right.
So usually women will wait for 6 weeks until they go to the GP for their 6-week checkup. The problem with that is that in those 6 weeks, many things can go wrong and become weaker, particularly as mums are spending a lot of time sitting down, feeding their babies and not activating the muscles that repair the core and the pelvic floor. So I take them in from 2 weeks once they've had a natural delivery. If it's been a medical delivery, it's a little later than that. And I teach them a really clever rehabilitation method that was created by a French gynecologist to help them to restore the pelvic floor and the core and get them ready to do actual exercise. Because very often women will come to me and say that they've been for their 6-week checkup, ask the GP if they can go back to high impact running or other types of exercise. And the GP will say to them, well, how do you feel? And they'll say, oh, I feel fine. And they'll go, okay, then no problem. But the problem we've got there is that if you start running or impact exercise at 6 weeks postpartum, your pelvis is nowhere near repaired enough to cope with the demands of that type of exercise.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's but the problem is we need to educate the general practice more at a higher level so that they know that women need rehabilitation first before they embark on something more intense.
And
So that's my job.
That sounds awesome. And it's celebrities who've probably led us down the wrong path, because obviously
it could be. I think maybe tabloids
then, yes.
Maybe tabloids have given us the wrong impression about celebrities. Isabella, would you mind shutting the door, please, darling? That we have the first home issue.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Going to be doing an interview. Could everyone be quiet?
Yes. No.
Anyway, so the pregnancy and postnatal work that I do actually led to a book deal back in 2012 with a publishing house called Souvenir Press. And so I wrote a book about my methods, and they were published, and there have been many, many copies sold.
Yes.
But then, unfortunately, my dear publisher who signed me up for this recently passed away. I mean, he was very elderly, and he had been probably the longest standing publishing house in London. His name was Ernest Hecht, and he really believed in holistic style publishing.
Oh,
and so, you know,
he was then.
Yeah, he was. And he was the guy who published the hypnobirthing book and all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, really great guy. Anyway, when he passed away, unfortunately, the publishing house changed an awful lot. But it was a very good opportunity for me, because they returned the rights of the book to me, which I was very happy about. And I am now mid-writing the second edition, because since 2012, my methods have changed and moved on a little bit. So even though the book is still relevant and there's, you know, nothing incorrect in the book, there's lots of other stuff that I do that I want to include in it. So that is where I am with the Fitmama method.
Fantastic. I had no idea about the book. I knew, obviously, I think when we came across each other, you were working at a Fitness First gym, weren't you, back in the day?
Yeah.
So, you know, you've evolved a lot.
Yes. Well, it wasn't very long after we met that I had the call to write the book, and I actually thought it was a hoax. Because I had I'd done a marketing video with Vodafone, and they had used Fitmama as a showcase to promote their telephone systems, because I was a client of theirs. And in those days, they did a YouTube video and a Telegraph spread, and they used Fitmama as the Telegraph spread as well. And that was how the publishing house came across me, was that they'd seen the advert in the Telegraph. But it just shows you how quickly times have changed, because they no longer use the Telegraph at all, because Johnny and I have just done another video with Vodafone for the Studio 41 business that we do.
Right.
So that was good fun. But yeah, so when the publishing house rang me up to say, oh, we'd like you to write us a book, I was like, it's a bit weird. And I put the phone down 3 times on the man, and I thought, maybe the 4th time he rang, I should take notice. But when he actually wrote me a letter to say, I'm really not joking, this is actually a genuine offer, would you write a book? I went up to see him, and it all went from there. Lovely guy he was. Yeah.
So how did you specifically get into the Fitmama side of things? Because, as I say, when I met you, you were doing fitness within Fitness First, as it was back then.
I was already running Fitmama in those days.
Oh, were you?
Yes. So I worked, I mean, you know, when I was building up the pregnancy and postnatal side of things, I obviously had to be a working instructor, and so I managed their studio whilst I was busy building up the business on the Fitmama side of things. And they were very good to me. They let me use the studio to run my courses and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But to be fair, I did go over and above on all my responsibilities in that job anyway, so it was only reasonable. I mean, it really goes right back to when I was a teenager, and I used to walk. I mean, I grew up in Africa, and I used to walk home from school. It used to take me probably at least an hour to walk from school to the house. And on that journey back, I used to pass an aerobics studio. And then I used to pass a place where pregnant women exercise. So I used to be totally in awe of these women doing high impact aerobics, jumping past the window. And then I'd go past another place around the corner and see all these lovely pregnant women doing all their little pregnancy exercises. And I just used to be completely engrossed and so in awe of what I saw. And at 15, when I became old enough to join in the aerobic studio, I used my pocket money to sign up as a member. So I used to walk home from school, and I used to go into the aerobic studio, do a class, and then walk home and see the last little bit of the pregnant ladies doing their thing. But I had no idea in my head that that would be the road I was going down. And when I left school, I did go off and do gymnasium management as a qualification, and you know, a very different qualification in those days. It was a much longer, more intense course, whereas these days people can become a PT in a weekend, you know. And then life moved on. I actually, after I'd qualified to do all of this fitness stuff, my father suggested perhaps I wanted to get a real job.
Yes, we've all had those.
And so I ended up in sort of desktop publishing and graphic design and web development and all that kind of thing. So I had a good sort of 10 years out of the fitness industry. And I had my little boy in that time, my big boy. And then when I became pregnant with my daughter, and I was back in the UK by then, because I'd hopped between Africa and England many times.
All right.
When I had my daughter, I couldn't find anything other than pregnancy yoga, and nothing like the classes that I used to watch when I was walking home from school, which were a little bit more active, you know, rather than just stretching and breathing. But I attended a yoga class just because I felt, well, at least I've got to do something. And the whole time I was attending the class, I was thinking, this really isn't for me. It's just so slow, and it's really, you know, I need to be doing more that, you know, makes me feel fit and strong during my pregnancy. And so I guess really it was that activity for myself that made me realize that really I had the fitness background. And so what I decided to do was go back to college, update my qualifications, and specialize in pre and postnatal, which I did with Karen Nordell, who is a medical doctor in Canada.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so I did a training course with her. And Carl Peterson, who's a very well-known physiotherapist and specialist in pre and postnatal issues. And that was 2005, so we're going back some time now. And it just kind of snowballed from there. My first class was at the North Warnborough Village Hall with 2 ladies, and I felt like a right twit. 2 pregnant women who were looking at me like, what are we going to do then? But before you knew it, by the time you met me and I was running the classes at Fitness First, I had to take on a second instructor because I had 30 women in a class.
Wow.
It just went absolutely crazy. So yeah, I would say that the Fitmama side of things is my passion. And so recently what I've done is I have just completed some doula training.
Which I wanted to come on to. Yes, I'm familiar with it, but not enough. Can you explain to us?
So the word doula means slave, but it's better described as the gatekeeper for the pregnant mum or postnatal mum. So basically, if we're talking about it from a childbirth perspective, the doula would be there to safeguard the mum and make sure that her wishes are met and that she feels safe and secure. She's not a midwife. but she is there to support the woman and make sure that her birth goes smoothly. But there are many different types of doulas. So you could be a doula who specialises in helping around the house after a baby is born. But the way the doula title will work with what I do is I'm already supporting women prenatally and postnatally, and it just gives me that little bit more insight into how I can do that even better, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I mean, you know, with the prenatal and postnatal classes that I run, I have lots of online free support groups for the girls that come to do my classes, and you know, I spend an awful lot of time answering questions and reassuring them and helping them to make choices by saying, well, you know, let's look into what's available. If you're concerned about pain relief, let's find out what pain relief is available, that kind of thing. So that's really kind of what a doula would do. But the majority of doulas would be in attendance for birth. And but the way I work is that the women come to me for classes, and so I support them in that way. But if someone wanted me to attend their birth, I wouldn't say no. I would, you know, attend if I felt that that person and I had a good connection and that I could support them.
Lovely. Yeah, because I did meet a lady a couple of years ago who was training or had trained to be a doula, and it was very much about being with the lady through the birth. But afterwards, about something to do with the pelvic bones need to be shifted back in or something. Thinking, didn't nature design that? Maybe not.
Well, yeah, I mean, nature is amazing and our bodies are incredible, and they do tend to return to what they should be under the right conditions. And unfortunately, in this modern world, you know, women are so keen to get back to normal, i.e., running themselves ragged and being all things to all people and not allowing their bodies to heal as they should do. So, which is why I try to get them in so early on after they've had their babies, because if I can educate them from an early postnatal phase and teach them how to rehabilitate their bodies, then it's a much safer journey for them. Because the women that ignore the rehabilitation side and just go back to normal, you know what, I'll see them in a year's time to do even more intense rehabilitation work because they are destroyed.
Yes, and I think, you know, it's believed, and it's a good belief, that pregnancy is a natural process and therefore everything should just return to normal. But I think we've somehow got ourselves trapped into this idea that we're almost like machines and we can just do it overnight. The body doesn't work like that.
No, and I mean,
time, rest.
Even with the pregnant girls, you know, it's really interesting to watch the threads on WhatsApp, because they're so impatient, and you know, every little tweak and twinge, they think that must be labour coming, and sometimes it is, but the majority of the time it's just the body doing what it needs to do to get ready to have the baby. But it can take weeks for labour to actually occur.
Yes.
You know, the latent phase of labour can take some time for some women, and for some women it can be almost impossible to pick it up and they suddenly go into labour. They don't suddenly go into labour, they just haven't noticed the changes that the body is you know, making for that to happen.
Yeah, because we're not tuned in, are we?
No, that's the problem.
I remember my first labour, and I was scared witless. And I now believe, I don't know that it's true necessarily, but I now believe that my fear slowed that labour down considerably, because the body, if it feels threatened, will not allow us to give birth easily. Because it thinks it's in the wild. The body doesn't know that we're in modern society. It's still working as though we're in the tribal days of our ancestors, and it will just close down. So yeah, if only I'd known that.
What year did you have your first baby, Kim?
86.
So, you know, if I think back to those sort of days, you may very well have even been in a very bright room with the strip lighting on, you know, none of this
on the television.
Absolutely. And, luckily now we're evolving and hospitals are starting to put tea lights out and dim the lights. And,
Yeah.
because all of the lighting plays a role on whether or not your melatonin levels are just right for labor and your cortisol levels are nice and reduced, But unfortunately, that was the same for me in 96 when I had my first boy. I just remember there being these strip lights above my head,
Yes.
very brutal midwife telling me off for all sorts of things, It's a totally different time.
Very, very different time. So it sounds, as you say, like awesome. You've got quite a good all-round approach to women who are expecting or have babies. So what's your plans for the future? Obviously, you're now rewriting your book, but what's your plans for the future?
Well, obviously, we have recently been through quite a difficult time business-wise.
Yes.
So the plans for the future have altered slightly. And Fitmama is now very much online. So part of the project with that is I've got a good friend of mine who, from my very old web development and management days, who used to be part of my team back in the day when it was all I did was computer work. He is redesigning my website for me, and I'm going to be selling my classes online.
Lovely.
So the great thing about where we've been in 2020 is that I had to learn very quickly how to make my classes available online, and how to online myself, which was that was a bit of a learning curve. And yes, so from a Fitmama perspective, we will go back to teaching normal classes, but the business will be something that people can purchase through the website as well. So rather than have to turn up to a class in person, they can download and save and keep the stuff forever.
That's awesome.
And with the other side of the work that I do with Johnny, it is really just a case of rebuilding our business after this year's challenges.
Yeah.
It's been we've been out of the business for 3 months. We're probably going to be the last of all industries to return to work. So yeah, the future is really very immediate for us in that regard. We just are rebuilding, 7 years of hard work that suddenly got put on pause. So hopefully we will pull through and live to tell the tale.
Yes, I think you will, because I love your approach, and I know of Johnny, but I've not met him and spoken with him, but I know his take on life, and it's very much similar to my own, as is yours. This almost spiritual, energetic way of looking at the body in itself. It's not. Because a lot of people work in their heads or in their body, but they don't bring the two together. And you've got a holistic is the word I've been looking for, and a holistic approach to what you do. And I think that's so important. And I think that's the thing of the future, certainly from my perspective, working at the emotional level and the mental level. If we can bring that into our physical, which is where you work as well, you just get a much better holistic approach to our well-being. And there is other parts, but they're the key ones that people are happy to tune into. So
yeah, I mean, he you're spot on about him. He is very, very much that type of character, and I don't think that the business would work if either one of us weren't part of it, because we work so well together. It's just it's evolved brilliantly, and he likes to come and do Tai Chi in the park with me, so that's even better.
Excellent. Are you going to be doing that again?
Well, I think so. I've held off a little bit because I wasn't sure where we stood with, how many people could congregate, and I thought, what, better just to err on the side of caution and wait. But I am very much looking forward to getting back and doing a little bit of dancing with rainbows on the grass. That would be fantastic.
It was awesome. I did love it, I have to say. So, and I'm much fitter this year than I was even last year. So,
well, you look so well.
Thank you.
Do.
Thank you. So recovering nicely.
Brilliant.
So just to wrap up then, is there anything that we've not covered that you'd just like to let us know about that's going on in your world at the moment? Anything we've not covered?
I don't think so. trying to be really efficient with where I have lots of time on my hands compared to normal. Yeah, we've just been really busy trying to, update skill sets and, all that kind of thing. So nothing too dramatically wonderful to announce, but I think the do list stuff was probably my most proud
Oh,
achievement.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
that would be good to keep an eye on that one. So if people want to contact you, Marie, I just make a note of it. As you know, I don't edit because I don't know how to, or put little subtitles on, but I can put it in the comments. How would they contact you, Marie?
Probably the best thing to do is to go to the website, which is www.fitmamastudio.com. So that's FITMAMASTUDIO.com. And there should be a contact link there somewhere where they can just whiz me a little email, and that will come
Lovely.
straight through to me.
Marvellous. Thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely to talk to you, and been good to hear more about what you've been doing, because I think we've talked briefly with each other, but not really had a good old chat about what you've been doing. So long may it continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you everyone for watching.
Take
Take
care.
care.